In the first video, we did like an introduction to AT's color, but let's take the colors to the next level. So, this is what we reached the other time. I'm going to clear everything, press save, come to AT color palette. It's a post type, trash it. You might be wondering, if we trash it, how then do we get our colors? So this is what makes AT like have its superpower. AT is like the best. Like if you're not using AT at the moment, you should really grab a copy of AT and start using it. So imagine you could create your own CSS variables and import them to AT. AT makes that possible, and that is how come ACSS, the core framework, props can be used inside AT. So behind the scenes, this is what is happening. So let's go to AT theme settings, then come to CSS variable. Let's start with typography. So AT uses Utopia's fluid typography. So behind the scenes, you can specify the minimum width, the maximum width, the type scale. So I'll just leave the link in the description. You can just go and play around it. I love playing with 320. 320. I always want my fonts to be like 16 then to 18. That's what works for me. Then so 16 to 18, then you can go down in steps like this or add more. So I'm going to remove the small one. For some reason this 16 will not even be 16 because one rem is supposed to be 16, but in Bricks Builder, one rem before it gets converted to 16, it is normally 62.5, so it's like 10 pixels. So this 16 will become 10 now. So even this 10 is really small for my liking. So I'm going to remove the extra small ones. So bear that in mind. We are seeing 16 and 18 here, but behind the scenes is like 10. Cool. So I'll use this for my body. I'll use this for my H6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 for the time being. We could add 1, 2, 3 just in case we want display. So you can play around this minimum, maximum. You can change the viewport. You can change the type scale and you're good to go. So we can just copy this. For the sake of those who don't have WP code box, I'll do it here. So we can create our own font names. If you know VS Code, Shift and Alt to select like a range, then you can start typing your own thing. So 0, I want my 0 to be font extra small. Then all steps will now become font for me. So Shift and Alt was what I just used. Shift. So at a point, Shift Alt, then you can draw and select a range. So Shift Alt. Then my 1 will become my small. Then my will become my body. I'll use my 3 as my H6, the smallest. Then H5. So font hyphen H5. Font H4. So I'll go through it. So my font small, X, extra small, small, body, H6, H5, H4, H3, H2, H1. Then I can use my 9 as my display. So I can call this display 1. For some reason, if I want more, we reach the 9th step. So I can create 1, then it will add it here. So this is step 10. That is how powerful AT is using this. So I can come back to here like so. Then font font display to you rarely use a display font, but just in case you are building your own framework. So extra small all the way to display, so big. This will be our fonts. So it's currently in TypeScript. Type, we change it to CSS, then control, then backslash or forward slash control forward slash. This will be my typography. Is that all we can do with 80? No. So for some reason, if I want to even bring in my colors, I can bring in my colors like so. Colors, let's say I'm going to copy from, so I prepared this beforehand. I want my primary color to be this, my action, my primary, secondary, action, accent, shade, base. Sometimes it's too much, but who cares? I can leave the variables like this and change them just with CSS. So my colors are set. I can change them always. Then we might need some for spaces or gap. So Utopia comes with Utopia has its own space. So whatever you chose for the type, you could get the same thing for the space. So if you like, you change it. If you like, you leave it. Then 3x, remember it is in, it's going to be a little smaller. So 3x, 2x, extra small, all the way. It can go add more to it. I normally even add it to 6 because this doesn't become the normal 108 because of the 10 rem, 10 pixels, 16 pixels different. So you can get up to 6x. If you want more, add more. Nobody stops you. Okay, so let's just copy from here our space values, copy. And the good thing about this is that with this thing we are doing, you can always just go and change it from, you can change it from VS Code. And when you are done with VS Code, you can go back to your settings. So you can come to your theme settings, this, and change it from here. If you have WP code box, then good for you. So it might be difficult to set up in this, like in the to begin with, or like, yeah, it might be difficult to set up to begin with, but you can always go and just change values in whatever you are calling VS Code or WP code box. So I'll throw in a couple of like grid for the meantime to show you that it's possible. You can build upon it. So grid. So let's say some few colors, some typographies, spaces, grid, and these are all CSS. We'll just copy it, then we'll reference these names inside 80. So let's just do these ones for the time being. So as usual, we can just copy this, paste it here, save, and it should be working. How do we test? Primary, secondary, action, accent. For now, we'll not see. Let's go to, if you remember, if it were me on the previous video here, we can delete it because now we are not using 12 variables. Save it, reload and let it spoil, and we'll fix it. So what are our new color variables? I'm calling mine color primary, just in case somebody is still using the 80. In my future videos, if you want to watch my feature videos, it doesn't break anything, it doesn't fight with anything. So I am playing with something different. So you come here, default is breaks default, call it custom, any name you like. Then in a raw value, you paste variable dash and it will show. But I don't want us to suffer doing it manual. So I can even change this to secondary, and it will change, or accent, and it will change. But what if we could just do 80s, click, then get it? So that is the next step. Now we've brought in our color variables. They are working. If you're using Codebox, you should get a better preview. But I'm trying to show you that it can work with whatever you have. Even if you want to work with appearance, theme, then put it in a chart theme, it will still work. So now how do we get these names inside 80? So let's go to 80, come to wherever you are, 80 theme settings, then you come to CSS variable, then import framework, then please click on this example. Now we'll copy all this, back to VS Code. If you are watching this tutorial, then it means that you are not like you are not totally new, or you want to get your hands dirty. I'm not any expert. I just started using Breaks like 3 months ago, but I always want to get my hands dirty, and by asking the group, I've been able to get this far with my knowledge. So thanks to Maxine, thanks to all the people who are making 80, especially the group. If you're not in the group, you should really check out the group. So my color, category example 1, color, then copy, then we'll paste it here. Cool. But we are in VS Code, so let's just do magic. If there was a way we could select everything after this colon in bulk, it will really help us. So I have this regex code. I don't know if I can zoom inside the regex code for you to see, but it is just colon, full stop, star, colon, full stop, star, and $sign. This regex code. So let's go back to minus. So when you press on regex, this regex code is to select everything after the first colon. So you can right click here, replace all. It will jump you to the next window, but you can always come back. So we've replaced all, we've removed all the codes. Then the next thing is you don't need these variable 2 hyphen signs. You are in VS Code, Control D to remove all, or you can select one, copy, Control H, then in the replace field, blank, replace all. That is also simple. So like so, we've removed all the double, but I don't like that approach because I'm a lazy guy. So I'll do this and press Control D. And there's a reason why I'm doing this. Let's watch this. It should always be in double quotes, then a comma afterwards. So after selecting it, or I can press Shift, delete it. So when you press it, it's like it's selected, you're in VS Code, so it's put double quotes before and after. So you can press backspace to delete it, then press delete to delete the back. You can press end on the keyboard, end, END, then it will go to the end of the line. Press Shift and apostrophe again to give you the double quotes, then comma. So this is an easier way I found. The last one, the very last of every line, delete the comma. We are deleting all these. Then remember, 80 gives us a sample. So now we can come and replace these samples. Let's bring one at a time. So I'll select all this, cut, paste into 80's sample. So color, colon, an array, then the names of the variables. That's all, the names of the variables. So let's do the next one. Let me zoom it. The next one will be fonts. I'll copy all my fonts. I can even cut it. Select these test variables and throw them here. The last one, we fixed it. Then this will become our typography. Then space and gap. So just in case you don't want it to finish, for reference, let me copy this and paste it above. It will give you an error to tell you that, okay, there's something missing. So it's telling us that here we are missing a comma. It's hard in the start, but when you start playing with it, you get used to it. So now we can copy all the spaces. Then are we getting any red? We are getting a red. So here, because the name is repeating, this is our space and gap. So you can copy the space and gap. Then grid to grid. And within the grid, copy the last one. So imagine you want to add more CSS variables. Just copy the template and start tweaking it. The last one, we'll remove this block. Then VS Code will help you, so you can remove this comma. If you don't remove it, it won't work. So we remove that, and that is how we get our code. So I can undo in VS Code for you to see how far we've come. We used this script colon to remove everything after here. We selected this, press Ctrl D. When we're done, we press what? Backspace, then we press, so you get a drill. So when I press it like this, it will select everything. Right click. It's a video, I'm sure you can play it back. Let me not waste your time. So now the JSON or the JSON file that we want to import into AT is ready. So file, save as. I'll call it custom because I've been playing with it. It's like my 21st time playing with this same, creating the JSON to import into AT. But as soon as I got a hold of it, now I can create it with ease. So custom version 1.9, it's a JSON file. Press save. We are done with this. We can close this. We no longer need this. We'll come to our theme, then add new theme. I'm going to call it myself, David Paul. Add a file. So I'll just drag it from my other screen. So wherever you created it, custom 1.9, just drag it into this. Okay, so this is it. So we can drag it. You don't want to come. Cool. Add file. Drag it here. Select. So this is what we show in AT. You can call it whatever you like. I'm going to call it my name, David Paul. Press it, save settings. Like, it's done. Now let's recap. In our settings or break settings, forgive me. So when you are in breaks settings, in our custom code, remember we've brought in all our CSS variables that we want to work with. If you want to change it, you can come and change it here. Cool. Now we've imported our JSON. AT does it the rest for us. So let's go and see it in action. So close. I like opening so many tabs. Close everything. open link in a new tab. Cool. So if you watched my previous video, we messed around with this. So now when I come to my background, the moment we've all been waiting for, we'll come to this in our raw tab. In our CSS variable picker, we should see David Paul, or you hover on it. If it doesn't come, then it means that I didn't do something right, but it should come. Hold on. So it's kind of funny. I didn't really do anything when I paused the video. For some reason, when I hovered, it didn't come. Let's just reload it again. I didn't do anything because soon as you expand, come background, primary, then raw variable David Paul, or whatever you called yours, it should come. So let me close it again. Variable, we are in the raw tab. For some reason it didn't come on the first time, but anytime I close it, come back again, variable, it should come now. So now it's working. So let's just import it. So variable color primary is done. So variable create a color. I'll call this David Paul. Press save. For some reason, when I created David Paul, press save, the variable is working, creates it, then this color has come. I can always list, then delete these from previous examples. Now it has come. I can even delete it, create it again, color. If it doesn't come, play with hex. Trust me, it comes. So why you always come to Skype, go to David Paul. Let's just delete my Skype example. So edit, then dustbin, apply, then David Paul, color variable primary, save. It is working. Yours will be grid, so color primary is working. If you want to bring in the other ones, raw variable, color secondary. I don't know why it doesn't want to show, but trust me, it will come. So color secondary, save, it will come. Variable, color action, save, it will come. Variable, color accent, save, it will come. Variable, color shade, save, it will come. Variable, color base, you save, it will come. So now we've imported the colors inside the color picker. So in breaks, these were the extra steps. So even if the colors are working, the colors are what would have to do lots of work, but the other variables, like let me just content, then container variable. Remember, we brought in our own variables. They are all working. The hover is working. Everything is working. So I'm going to use like space L. It should work. What if I want to make it a grid? Variable, grid, variable. These are coming from David Paul. So I want my space to be, let's say, space M between the grid. In my CSS variable, I want it to be a grid of 4. It should work. So now you can import your colors, import your custom CSS. You can create some for anything that Brace has created input for. So I've not tested it. So let's say border color. The colors will work now. We've imported it. for these ones, you know, they are figures that they are test input, so one will work. So it means that if I want to use my variable to bring in, let's say, space s, remember space s is just giving you something in pixels or something in rem, so you can also use that there. And if you'd be following me, you realize that I won't be using the normal 80s color palette. So this is what will happen, because the next video where I show you how I build or I recreate discord.com, so this is what we'll be creating in the next video, discord.com, using 80 I love breaks extras, but we can use 80 without to build something like this. So if that sounds interesting, that is what we'll be doing in the next video. Now we've had 80s, we've said everything, colors imported. What about dark and light theme? Let me tackle that one before we go. So our variables are working, our colors are working, we can do whatever we like now. I'm just going to make it flex. Looks like that grid didn't go. Let me close it, flex is working. So flex space, all these are custom variables. I can disable 80s CSS variable altogether. So bricks settings, you'd come to global bricks 80 settings, forgive me, global settings, general CSS variable, save settings. After import, I can disable 80s, close it, reload it. Can disable 80s color, 80s CSS variables, and you can use your own framework if that sounds interesting. So here, typography variable, I'm just using now David Paul won't show again because that's the only variable there. So my font size small, body h6 all the way to my display sizes, all are custom. So if I change my mind and I don't want my color primary, I just come here to my here. I don't normally use breaks settings, I always use WP code box, but just in case people don't have it, so custom code, then you get the whole thing. Let me just cut it to where I normally work. So I've cut it, WP code box. You know how to do it on your own. So I can let me just delete this, create a new one, call it framework. It's going to be a CSS. I want its external file, paste it, and if I want to change my color variables, my typography, if I want to add more, I just add them more here. So save, enable, my framework is working, and now that it is working, I'm going to 80 color demo, delete. I can come to my framework like so and change maybe my fonts, add more to it, and it should be working. Let's watch the front end. It should be working. Cool. What about dark mode? So now if I want to do dark mode for these things, you remember from previous, if you've forgotten, a quick refresher, 80 treats colors like this. So when I scroll down, roots, this is from what we are doing. There's so much root, forgive me, but this is what is happening. I had my own examples. So I had this before recording, so I'm just clearing it, save it. Now when I reload the front end, there should be only one root with my custom CSS. So when I scroll down, there's this root. So this is it. It's an inline style with all these that are loading from the front end. Cool. If you are using dark mode and light mode, inspect. So let me show you how 80 is tackling. When you press on dark mode, 80 adds this BRX dark. So When you scroll down, it will give you BRX. I just want to show you how fine it here. I have it on my other screen. Could it be because I disabled it? Let me find out. Okay guys, so forgive me. Now what we can do is that with these colors, we can just use this, just this from the previous video, and we will declare our dark versions of these colors. So I can copy them all now. Now my color primary, which was this, let's make them something more obvious. Red, yellow, green, something more obvious. Violet, magenta, cyan. Save. Just with body BRX dark. Then let's reload here. Builder. Then here. The next one, background, primary. Next one, background, accent. Cool. Save. View on the front end. Want to toggle dark mode or work, because the genius behind AT has just given us something that you can use to create anything you want. So with this, like with this introduction, you can bring in your own custom font. So the font is currently styled to H3, typography, then David Paul to display. And you saw me import stuff from VS Code, and we have our own working framework. So if you want to go ahead and create your own style sheet, nothing is stopping you. To flex row, this can be, you can go inside and change it. So variable display to variable display, you can use 80s genius. So variable h2, create your own style guide, save it, and you, like, the possibilities are endless. The possibilities are endless. Now anytime you want to change our color variables or add more, if you want to change your dark, you can just change it with something that you are used to, and you still get 80s superpowers, but this one you can tweak it to your own heart content. So your typography, your spaces, your grid, even your custom CSS that you want to input into some of these variables. If it has an input field, if it has an input field, and you can see a V here, you can write it. So you can use the same idea to create width. So you can come and let's say you can do width, then give it your own name with what percent, 25 or 25% width. So 25%. And if you don't want to be typing with 25, or you can even make it length, because this same width can be height. So length, whatever you want to come up with, you can come up with it. So things like width, mean width, these are all length. So measurement values, you can create variables for them. Then you can start even doing calc. You can calculate stuff because they are variables. So if you want to do like calculations in the variable field, if maybe you want to add transparency and stuff, just getting, you can do it. You want to do multiplication, you can just start doing your calcs and stuff. So this will be like, it's 34 minutes already, but basically this is how You can extend the superpowers of advanced thema, create your own framework. And I'm sure when you start playing with it a lot, like you start playing with it continuously, you're also going to find hidden gems. If you find something that you want to share, can you share it inside the group so that we'll all get to explore like 80. So catch you on the next one. The next one, we are building this code with 80 with the same framework you saw me build. And the reason why I'm doing this is because of how I work. I'm always building website from scratch, and I just want to have control over what. Trust me, I'm not in any way saying you can't do it with ACSS, Oxyprops, or core framework. I'm just trying to say that to me 80 is more than enough, because I by the way, I'm always writing custom CSS. So if 80 gives me this opportunity, I'll just use it. So I won't be using any framework in my tutorials, but you can still learn how we do some of these things. So see you on the next one. We'll be building this code.